They say you're not supposed to talk about a woman's age,
Yes,
but this is a big deal.
it is.
Mom, you turned 60 years young
Thank you.
this year.
Yes.
After 60 years, you have become somewhat of a legend
Oh, dear.
in Slida. No, this is a good thing. You are a local legend.
Am I?
You're a celebrity. People love you.
Oh, my goodness.
For the people who are going to watch this video, family, friends, coworkers, anyone that you've interacted with over the decades, what I want to do in this video is kind of just walk through your story decade by decade.
Okay.
And people can get an understanding. They can see the real, true Maddie. Sorry, can I call you Maddie?
I guess. Yes.
Dr. Mom.
Dr. Mom.
We
is
want to
good.
talk about that title
Oh,
at some point.
Yes.
But what I want to do is start at the beginning.
Okay.
That first 10 years of your life.
Okay.
Take me back to the beginning. What was your childhood like for you growing up?
My earliest memories, when I was about maybe 3 or 4, I remember riding my tricycle. I remember doing that, and I remember riding that on the sidewalk. I remember Dad in the driveway washing his car. And I remember Mom in the yard, I think in the garden, with flower watering or planting or something. That's probably my earliest memory. I'm the oldest, so at that time, I didn't have siblings at that time. And so I think I was about 3 or so. And it was a sweet time. I remember my parents were very loving, very caring, very supportive. There were boundaries, but those were good things, right? Having boundaries. Kids need boundaries, but always done in love. Never demeaning, or any of that. So I remember those years were all very sweet years. And then, I remember certainly having sisters. I have 2 sisters. And I remember that. But when we start to get to about 9 to 10 years old, that's kind of when things started changing for our family. A little bit of background as far as my parents. My parents met in college. He was a city boy from Shreveport. She was a country girl from Jackson, Louisiana. And they met at college, Northwestern. And the way they would express it to me is they were attracted to one another. They had a lot of things that were in common, believe it or not. But there were some significant differences too. And those started kind of rearing up the longer they were married. So one was Republican, one was Democrat. One was from the country, one was from the city. One was, they just had different views on finances. And so after being married a while, they just naturally, I think they just started drifting apart. So when I was 9, I had 2 sisters. One would have been 6 and the other would have been 3. And Mom told us that we're going to go into Dallas. Now, at this time, we were living in Richardson, Texas at this time. We'd been there about a year. And she said, we're going to go into the city. We're going to go to Dallas. We're going to stay at this fancy hotel. They got a swimming pool, and we're going to eat out and all of that, thinking that this was going to be a wonderful weekend. But what she was doing was she was taking us away to tell us that they were getting a divorce. I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah, she was trying to break the news.
She was trying to break the news, but not at our home. Into the city. Dad was being served with papers that same weekend. And I remember sitting on the edge of the bed and her telling me. I remember Lauren and Nina being in the room, but I don't remember what they were doing. But I remember sitting, I'm 9 years old, and I remember her telling us that they were no longer going to be married. And I ran into the hotel bathroom and locked the door. She had to call service. She had to call the desk to get somebody to unlock that door because I would not come out. I remember that vividly. It was a hard time. There was nothing fun about that weekend at all, you know. But that was her way of telling us what was about to happen. And we stayed. We stayed in Dallas. Dad moved to Baton Rouge. And then several years later, you know, I ended up moving to Baton Rouge to live with Dad. But after about that age, things had changed for our family, not just in the family unit, but Mom had to work 2 or 3 jobs. I remember her leaving for work in the morning. She would take Nina to childcare, but Lauren and I had to walk to school. And so I had to walk Lauren to her school and then drop her off, and then I walked to my school. And now, these schools were close to one another. They weren't side by side, but they were near one another, probably within a mile's distance. I packed lunches. Then after school, I walked back to Lauren's school, picked her up, and then the 2 of us walked home.
Is the saying true that you had to walk uphill in the snow while fighting off a bear to get to school?
No, I had to walk up a hill. Yes, I had to walk up a hill, but there were no bears. I don't remember walking in the snow, but I do remember walking uphill. But we were called latchkey. I think it's latchkey kids is the term, because we had a key to the house. We were left alone a lot. Parents worked. Mother worked a day job as a Kelly girl, which was a secretarial pool. And so she worked for Kelly Girls by day, and then she was a waitress for Pizza Hut in the evening. So, and then she worked weekends. And so she worked constantly. And that meant I was home with my sisters alone a lot. And that's really where my fascination for movies came from, was because I was looking for an escape. I wanted to get my mind off of what was happening, you know, my world and Dad not being around. And so I just dove into movies.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I am a huge movie nerd. I started this YouTube channel actually as a movie review channel because I was just so passionate about watching movies, talking about them, reviewing them.
Yeah.
And I think it all really started because of you. Mm-hmm. Like when we were growing up as kids, you showed us the classics from the 50s, the 60s, the golden era of Hollywood.
Yes.
Things that most of my friends have never even seen.
Right.
They're not watching Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or Singing in the Rain or John Wayne and all these westerns. Like most kids nowadays are not watching any of that.
That's right.
But when we were growing up, you just showed us these classic movies.
Right.
And we still love them to this day.
I know.
So let's talk more about that, where that movie kind of part of your life came into place.
It stemmed from me trying to escape my reality. And movies were a great escape. You could forget about all your troubles. You could forget about, you know, what's going on in real time, right, for 2 hours. And you could dive into this story and characters, and you could even pretend you were in the movie. You know, you could pretend you were a character and you were really there. And it didn't matter to me if they were black and white movies. It didn't matter to me. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock movies and, you know, musicals. Now, Mom loved musicals, and so that's where the love for that. She introduced us to the musicals. Dad wasn't real crazy about musicals when they came on, or he would kind of, you know, get the newspaper out, you know, and read the newspaper. But he loved John Wayne, and he loved the westerns, and he grew up on the Louis L'Amour books, and they had made some of those Louis L'Amour books into movies. And he But he was a big John Wayne fan. So that's where my love for John Wayne comes from.
And it's strong to this day.
It's still
I mean, I
strong
will
to
call
this
you on your birthday. I will call you on a holiday.
Yeah.
And that is what you've got on the TV is a
Yeah.
John Wayne movie.
I didn't know much about the man, right? Of course, we know that he was very patriotic. We know that he was a no-nonsense kind of guy. But in his movies, he was no nonsense. He was straightforward. But he still had this underlying kindness and tenderness to him. And but in the end he got the bad guy. In the end he got the bad, and he got the girl. He got the girl, he got the bad guy, and all was well with the world again.
So that was the first decade. Let's move to the second decade.
Oh,
You're
goodness.
now a young kid.
Yeah.
You're becoming, preteens and your teenage years
Yeah.
in the 70s.
Yeah.
What was happening then? I'm trying to imagine life in the 70s for you. Can you paint a picture for me?
Yeah, if you go from now 10 to 20, right? Okay. So the first couple of years from 10 to 14, I was living with, we were still in Dallas, Mom and my two sisters going to school. And then Texas had a state law that said when you turned 14, you could choose which parent to live with. That was their law. And so their divorce was in Texas. So when I turned 14, I decided to go live with Dad. Dad had remarried. He hadn't been married long, maybe about a year or so at this point. I was 14, about to turn 15. I was about to be a sophomore in high school. And I called Dad that summer and I said, Dad, I'm ready. I'm ready to come live with you. Is that okay? And he said, sure, absolutely. And so striking thing was Mom was getting remarried. She was getting married for the second time. And I left on her wedding day. I know that's probably one of the regrets I have because that hurt her so deeply. But at that point, you have to remember for 5 years, I really had been playing mom to my sisters. I had done a lot. And I didn't want to do it anymore. In fact, when we get to this stage and I'm 14, about almost 15, I didn't even want children because I had been mom for 5 years.
Wow.
I didn't want children. I didn't want to have anything to do with children. I was not getting married. That was my mindset at 15. I was not having children. I was not getting married. I didn't want to have anything to do with children. I was going to get a career. I was going to see the world. I was going to have a penthouse apartment. I was going to have the little red sports car. I was going to see the world. Maybe, and this is how selfish at this point I was. I wasn't going to have children, give birth to children, but I might adopt a child because there's so many children that need a home. I mean, this was how selfish I was. This is where I was mentally. I was done. And Dad, I felt like that was an escape for me because it was just him, his second wife, and her son were the only ones in that home. And I felt like this had nothing to do with my sisters. I was so resentful toward Mother that I wanted out. So I moved in with them in August, and come October, I got invited to an all-girls lock-in at Jefferson Baptist Church. So a new friend that I had met at school, invited me to this all-girls lock-in. Didn't know anything about this. And now, as a child, we were raised in church. We went to a church, very rural church, where everyone was related to everybody else, except the minister. The minister was somebody they brought in, right, to fill the pulpit, so to speak. But everybody else in the church was related. So I had good memories of church life. We went to church every Sunday. Dad did not. But Mom got the 3 girls up and dressed, and we went to church. But I didn't know anything about a relationship with Christ. Those words had never been used. I knew about God the Father, and I knew Jesus was his son. Never heard about the Holy Spirit. Never heard about any of that. And then I get invited to this all-girls lock-in. I'm 15, and that's where I heard the gospel for the very first time. And in that moment, I realized my need for a Savior. I realized how selfish and self-centered I was. And I realized that that I needed saving. And so I gave my life to Christ at that all-girls lock-in. And I was baptized the next Sunday. But Dad's marriage started to fail. And I was watching all of that. I was watching the arguments. I was watching the alienation, the separation they were creating. I was watching this marriage slowly unravel, and I really didn't get plugged into that church. I think I had gone a couple of times, but there was no discipleship. I didn't know what to do without now this decision, this commitment I was making with Christ. I didn't know what to do with that because I hadn't been discipled. And I was watching Dad's marriage just slowly unravel. And so from that, and then, high school ended. Of course, the good news in high school was my senior year was when I met your dad.
Along came a man named Carl.
That's right. So that clearly was the high point from being 10 years old to 20 years old. That clearly was the high point. Other than getting saved, of course. Getting saved at 15.
You found Jesus and you found Carl.
I found Jesus, exactly right. I found Jesus at 15. I found Carl when I was 17. And, your dad was just somebody, goodness, somebody I'd never met before. No one like him, Granted, I had dated, but they were losers. I remember Dad telling me when I had introduced him to my date and went on the date and came back. I remember walking in the door and curfew. I was on time, and him saying, "When are you going to get rid of these losers? Would you please stop bringing these losers home?" He was very blunt, which is probably where I get some of my directness from. But he was like, "When are you going to stop bringing these losers home?" Well, Carl showed up. When he met Carl, he's like, finally, I've met a man that I can hold a conversation with. Finally, I've met a man that you can look up to, that we can. That you can know better. He just, I don't know. I think he just that's the guy. And I this is so funny, but we were dating, we started dating and all of that. And I remember Dad pulling me aside and he said, "So help me, Margaret, if you ruin it with this guy," he said, "I'm going to kick your butt." He was just so, because he knew Carl was a keeper. He knew that. And compared to the other ones that I had brought home, now
right.
don't get me wrong, I wasn't dating a lot, but the couple of guys that I had brought home were bad news. And he knew that. He was a man, and men can spot that in one another. And he knew that Carl was not like the other guys that I had brought home. Your dad called me out of the blue, said, "We're coming in town to visit family, and would you go on a date? Would you go to dinner and a movie?" And I said, "Absolutely." Now, I want to take just a moment. I need for you to find out that I was in a really dark place before that phone call. In fact, it was so dark that I remember being in my apartment, and there was a storm that had come through Baton Rouge, and it shut out all the power. So I'm in the apartment by myself. It's pitch black. I find some candles, and I'm scared. I'm scared. I had had a couple of really bad relationships at that point. I felt lonely. I felt isolated. I felt like I was just in a very, very dark place. And so I remember lighting a couple of candles, and I went searching for my Bible. I hadn't been reading my Bible at all. In fact, it was packed away under the bed in a box, the very back. I mean, I had to go searching and digging to find this Bible. And I pulled out my Bible, and I started reading Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. In the dark with two little candles, and just crying out to God to please rescue me from this life. Rescue me from this. I was going nowhere. Now, the job was fine, but the social life was horrible, and I wasn't making good choices. And I told God, I said, I'm not going to date. I'm not going to even so much as talk to another male until you send me the man that you have selected for me. I told God that in the middle of that storm. And I told him, I said, and sure enough, I did. I kept my end of the bargain. 6 months later, your dad called. 6 months later, your dad called me. Of course, your dad, no clue that I've had this conversation with God. But your dad calls me out of the blue. And I knew then that God had him for me. I knew that God had rescued me, selected the man of my dreams, the man that he had for me.
And the father of your kids.
And the father of our kids. So
let's talk about that.
So that's now where I'm 20.
Yeah.
Now I'm 20, right? 20. Goodness, now from 20 to 30.
Yep. So you had Madeline at how old?
Well, we were married when I was 21. Your daddy was 22. We were married June of 87. And we were married, I think, almost 3 years when Madeline was born. Yeah, because she was born in July of 90. And we were married June of 87. So, yeah, 3 years.
And then it started from there, just one after the other.
It was.
I'm curious about your perspective being at that age, starting a family in the 90s.
Yeah.
Essentially. So the world was very different.
Right.
America was a very different place then.
Right.
What was your perspective being a young adult, a young family, and a young mom living at that time?
We were kind of doing our own thing. I mean, we had tried, when we got married, we tried different churches, which is what most young couples do, right? You know, if they're ready for church, right? Sometimes they're not quite ready for church when they first get married. Sometimes they're just raised with that, and they know that's a natural thing to do, is to find a church home. But in our case, we weren't at that place. And so we tried every denomination in town. We tried came from a Catholic and Lutheran background. We tried those two. That didn't work. We were married in a Methodist church. We tried that. That didn't work. I was raised Presbyterian and Methodist. We tried Presbyterian. That didn't work. I mean, when I tell you we hit every denomination in town, we did. And then a friend told me that the Baptist church, First Baptist in Slidell, had a new pastor. He'd been there maybe a year. And she said, let's go to church. Because she was raised Baptist. So she knew all about being Baptist. And she knew everything, But she had married a man who was best friends with your dad. And he was Catholic. And so the guys, your daddy and him, Jerry, would go play golf every Sunday morning. And then Tanya and we went to this church. She made me sit on the front row.
They call them back row Baptists, not front
not
row
for
Baptists.
her. Not for her. She said, come on, let's go sit up front so we can hear him better. I'm thinking, he's wearing a mic. It's okay. We could sit it. But no, she wanted to sit up front. And of course, this was Mike Claunch preaching. Mike Claunch.
The legend himself.
The legend himself, Dr. Michael Claunch, yes. And we went that morning. The guys had played golf, and we went. Now, at this stage, she had one child, and I had Madeline. And both her oldest and my oldest were very close in age. They were only maybe a month or two apart in age. So we were starting families at the same time. We were dear friends, did a lot of things together. And she convinced me to go to this church. Bring the babies. We brought the babies. And then that was Sunday. Monday, they sent out visitation teams. They sent out people in their congregation to go and visit the guests who were there on Sunday, right? So it's Monday. What's on Monday? Monday Night Football. Your daddy's sitting in a recliner with a beer in his hand, watching Monday Night Football. I've got laundry piled up on the sofa. Madeline's crawling around on the floor in nothing but a diaper. I have no makeup on. I'm in shorts and a T-shirt, and I hear, knock, knock, knock. They're at my front door. These church people were at my front door. And I opened the door. I mean, it was a hot mess express, but they came in and they welcomed us. Thank you for visiting with us. We're so glad that you were here. And they invited us to go on to a fellowship they were having at Cuevas's, which is a fish house in Mississippi. Wonderful catfish, delicious food. And they invited us to come to this, And so your dad and Jerry were not interested in going to church, but they were interested in being fed. They loved when food's involved, they were in. And so the four of us went to that fellowship that Friday night, and the rest is history. They got the guys in from that point on, because what happened at that fellowship, they met other men. They met other dads, other husbands. They met other couples who were just starting their families too. They met other people that they could relate to. And we were in church that Sunday, and we never stopped for 25 years. And that's how we started at First Slidell.
Yeah, I mean, that community pretty much raised us.
They did.
From the time that I was born till the time I graduated high school,
yes,
we were at First Baptist Church and then
Yes.
First Baptist Christian School. I mean, we were there 6 days a week,
Yes.
For school and church. And
we were.
the first 18 years of my life was
Yes.
at that campus.
Those people, that congregation, that body of believers loved us well. They loved the Fredericks. And of course, we loved them. At one point, Mom was still in Texas. So you guys didn't have a grandparent. Your dad's parents had died early. You really didn't have a whole lot of interaction with grandparents growing up. The first three, your older siblings, Madeline and Donovan and Jonathan, had more interaction with my dad. But, because of where they lived, because of, your dad's parents passing away early, you guys didn't have a lot of interaction with the grandparent age people, but they were there. There were many people in that body of believers in that congregation that loved on you guys and acted like surrogate grandparents in so many ways. They were your Sunday school teachers. They were your choir leaders. They were your Bible drill leaders. They were your VBS teachers, they just, it's just hard to imagine really our life. Especially the life of you guys, your kids, and not being connected in a church body that just pours into your family. And we got to experience that. And I just cherish, I really do. I cherish those years.
So that was a pretty foundational part of your story as a parent of
As a parent.
five kids.
5
That's a big
kids.
family.
Yes.
And for us as well as kids.
Yeah. Where is that girl that didn't want to have any children? Right? See,
Right.
God did that. God changed my heart. And then, so God changed my heart about that, about having children, wanting children, about being a mom. I just, my goodness, I can't imagine my life without you guys. And actually, and I talk about it. I don't talk about it a lot because it's a painful part, but I actually miscarried too before I got pregnant with you. And that was a difficult time as well. I'm thankful that you came along next, but yeah, I miscarried before in between Jonathan and you, and that was a tough time too. That's why there's probably a bigger gap between you two. All of you are so close in age until we get to Jonathan and you. There's 3.5 years, and part of that was because of that miscarriage that happened in between in that time, and then you
couldn't leave me alone though.
No,
because Jacqueline came next.
No, we found out we were pregnant with you, and then I told your dad right away. As soon as I found out I was pregnant with you, I said, he can't be the last one. He'll be all alone. The other 3 will grow and leave the house, and Harrison will be all, this child, I didn't know you were Harrison at the time. I said, this child's going to be all alone. We have to have a 5th one. And your dad bought it. He bought it hook, line, and sinker. And so we had, now, not once did I think Jacqueline will be left alone. Did I ever once think that you were going to move on, right, and leave your younger sibling behind? Did I? No, I never once thought that way. I was so concerned for you. I don't know why. But I was. I didn't want you to be alone as a kid.
Yeah. And it sounds like you roped Dad in with, some good marketing there. Some buy one, get one.
That's right. And so sure enough, yeah, Jacqueline, I think, is 18 months after you. And so, yeah. And then I remember telling your dad that we were pregnant with Jacqueline. And your dad goes, Uncle, that's it. I'm done. I said, okay.
Retired.
Okay. This is good. 5 is good. Frederick's 5.
So let's move into the 2000s now.
Okay.
You survived Y2K. Congrats. You did it.
We did. Oh, goodness. I remember stockpiling food. Yeah, we did. We stockpiled a little bit. And water.
So turn of the century happens, turn of the millennia, and then this little storm comes by in 2005 called Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
That caused massive damage to our city, to our state, completely destroyed our home.
Well, we got to go through 2002 first.
Okay, what was then?
2002, I lost 3 people that went to be with the Lord that year. And that was a very difficult year. So my dad died in February of that year. And then my stepfather, Hugh, died in September of that year. They both died from the same thing, colon cancer. And then December of that year, my sweet grandmother, Mama Elaine, died of a brain aneurysm. So all 3 of them died that year. So 2002 was rough for our family. For me personally, now I'm very thankful that they knew the Lord, and I know where they're at. I know they're in heaven, but 2002 was rough. But now we're at 2005. 2005. Yes, the year of Hurricane Katrina was a doozy.
It was a big storm that caused a lot of damage in our city, in our state. I mean, it completely destroyed our home. We had 6 feet of water in the house.
Yeah.
But it was also a turning point for your adult life,
Yes.
your career path,
Yes.
your mission in life.
Yes.
Can we talk about what happened as a result of Katrina that has led you now to where you are?
Hurricane Katrina, we evacuated to Texas, and we ended up in Salina, Texas. And the pastor of First Baptist Salina and that community just rallied around us. And what I say is they spoiled us rotten. They really took care of our every need, provided us with a place to live, provided us with furniture, clothing, food. I remember them coming to they had set us up at an apartment, and they would bring us food and then say, keep the crock pot it's in. Keep the containers that it's in, because they knew we had nothing. They had nothing but the clothes on our backs. And that's how they took care of us. They did a fundraiser for us. You guys went into the schools and started being a part of their schools and a part of the church. And, all of that was just absolutely amazing to me, how God orchestrated all of that. And when we get to a place, it is now, I think, the end of October, the 1st of November. So this is just a few months later. Your dad had been going back and forth. He was staying with us in Texas for like a weekend, and then he'd drive back to Slidell. He was helping clean out our home. He was helping Stark with their group homes. He was helping the church. He was doing a lot. And we really didn't want you kids to be subjected to all of that. Now, I know there were some kids, they had to face that. They had to live in the mud and the muck, and and everything was destroyed. There were kids that had to do that. But we had a place of solitude. We had a place that God provided. The way I look at it, God provided this place for you guys to continue on, continue with school, continue in worship, continue living as a kid and experiencing all the things that kids do. And at one point, though, at the end of October, your dad came and said, it's time for all of us to go back. And so a friend, we came back, and we stayed with a friend. And that friend ended up allowing us to stay with them for a few months until we kind of figured things out. But the last Sunday that we were in Texas, that last Sunday where we're telling this congregation who have been so good to us, we're telling them goodbye. Matter of fact, do you remember that you 5 did a sign language song? Do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
As a way to express gratitude to this community and to this church for all they did. So we get to this invitation on this last worship service. We're telling these dear folks goodbye and thank you for all they've done for us. And in that moment, God spoke to me and said, yes, you're going back, but you're going to serve me. You're going to serve me with kids, and you're going to seminary. Son, it was as if you had said it yourself. It coming out of a mouth. I mean, it was just a voice that told me. I just said, okay, Lord, whatever it is, just lead me. Just tell me what you want me to do, where you want me to go. What do you want? I just surrendered and said, yes, Lord. Just tell me and I'll do it. And so we came back. We moved in with some friends. We moved in with them for a few months. And then we found a home that we could rent. And that January, I started seminary. When we got back to Slidell, I told a very dear friend of mine what I felt God was doing in my life. And I confided in her. And she was the children's minister at the time, Karen. She was the children's minister at First Slidell. I didn't know at that time that God had called him to a church in Florida. And they had put that on pause because they couldn't leave First Slidell in the condition that it was in. It had suffered greatly from Katrina. The community near the church had suffered greatly. And so I had confided in her that God had called me to kids ministry. And she starts crying. Now, I think she's crying because she's happy for me. She's crying because she knew she was leaving. And her prayers had been answered because she had been praying, Lord, who's going to take my place? Who do you have going to take my place here in Slidell when I leave? And God had already gone before her. God had already gone before me. And so she recommended me to be the new children's minister for First Slidell. And I started seminary in January. I started to get a certificate. A certificate in preschool and kids ministries, 18 hours, 6 classes. And I thought, okay, well, I'm married, I had a job, full-time mom, and I worked out of the home. And I thought, okay, if I just take it one class at a time. Well, that sounded like a good plan. But at the time, the seminary had suffered so many losses as well. And so I could go to the seminary and take one class, but they were only offering classes one day. So I could go on Monday. I could take a morning, I could take an afternoon class, and I could take a night class. I could knock out 3 classes in one day. So I told your dad that, and he says, do it. Do it. So that's what got me. I was taking 3 classes my first semester. Halfway through the semester, I realized the certificate's not enough. I could do more. I think I could do more because I was learning now how to balance classes, balance my workload, balance family life. And so I changed it from a certificate program to an associate's. And so I got an associate's degree. And at the end of that degree, we started praying about, I went to your dad and I said, okay, well, it's either I keep going to the next degree or I stop here. And so we would pray about it. And he'd come back to me and he says, I don't think you're done. And I said, okay, well, I could get a bachelor's. I didn't get my first bachelor's at LSU. I didn't finish that. I dropped out. So I said, okay, well, all right. So I reapplied and I started working on a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry. And so I went through that. And so we get to the last semester again, and, it's okay. Either you're going to finish up this or you're going to reapply to start the next degree, right? So I went to your dad and I said, it's the last semester. I think we need to be praying about this. Is this the end for me? And so we would pray about it. And then he'd come to me and he said, I don't think you're done yet. I'm like, okay. All right. So what's the next step? So it was a master's degree. And I said, Carl, well, I'm at the, is this the end? We need to be praying about, is this the end for me? Because he says, well, what's left? I said, it's a doctorate degree. You could get a doctorate. He says, well, let's pray about it first. And so we did. We prayed about it. And he came back to me and says, Maggie, I just don't think you're done yet. And I'm like, really? Really? I'm not done yet after all of this? And so I applied for the doctorate program.
And this is where we get Dr. Mom from.
This is where that comes in. And actually, while you're working on a PhD, you earn another degree in them. It's called a THM, Master of Theology. Theology is a theology degree. Anyway, it's another degree. Very few people walk, if at all, because it's a degree you earn in the midst of getting a PhD. It's absolutely remarkable when you think about the amount of information and the amount of learning that you do for a PhD, that you earn another degree in the middle of it, it's pretty astonishing, the amount of work.
So after all those years, you walked away with 2 degrees.
5 degrees.
5 degrees.
5 degrees in 14 years.
Wow.
And I stayed married, and I raised great kids. We raised great kids.
So you committed 14 years of your life to education,
Yeah.
to your career, but also your calling.
Yes. Yeah.
I just think that's so impressive. Like, I don't think people really give doctors enough credit sometimes. It's just like the amount of effort and the amount of books that you had to study and papers. Like, I remember those 14 years.
Yeah.
And you were in your office, you were either reading a paper, you were working on a paper, you were we would come in and like we were on shift work of giving you like back massages
Yes.
and neck massages.
That's
and
right.
bringing you coffee.
That's right.
Like all the kids were just on shifts. You know, we were like clockwork.
Mom, you need anything?
Supporting mom.
Yes.
Yeah, in your pursuit of education and just all these, just the amount of work that you put in. And I am just so proud of you for the years that you committed to that. Like, I went to college for 4 years, and I don't want to go back. I can't imagine 14 years.
Yeah.
So I'm just so proud of you for like committing to that. And I mean, getting the title Dr. Mom is like such a badge of honor.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. It's, you know, was that the goal? That was never the goal. The goal was to be obedient to God. That was the goal. The goal was to take it one step at a time, to be submissive. And I knew that God had called me to this. I knew that. Now, I certainly had people question me about it. That wasn't ever fun, questioning me if I was right, you know. I had people questioning me being a woman and what I was doing. I had plenty of that. But I never doubted what God was trying to do. I certainly didn't know what the final, right? I did, because, you know, at one point in the journey, I thought, well, maybe I was going to be a professor. You know, maybe that's where this was headed, and help the new generation of kids ministers, you know, help that. But at one point, I just realized, no, God wants me in the trenches. God wants me where the kids are. This young girl who didn't want children, didn't want to have anything to do with kids, all of a sudden now wants to be surrounded by kids and loves it, and was sure in my calling. Because when you're called to ministry, you're going to lean on that calling over and over and over again. When I ran out of words to type, when I ran out of words to say, you look back on that calling and said, no, God has called me to this. He's going to see me through it. He's going to make a way for this, for me to finish this. You know, those nights, you're right, that you guys would bring me stuff. You know, a lot of those nights, I didn't even start my homework until you guys were done. 10 o'clock at night, and worked till 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, got an hour's sleep to get up and go to work. There were lots of nights like that, you know, where I just lived off of coffee. I lived off of coffee and snacks. Because I needed that. I needed to keep going. The workload was so heavy, and but I had a supportive husband, my biggest cheerleader, you know, saying, Maggie, you can do this. And I'm very thankful for your daddy having that mindset, because my parents were like that. You know, my grandmother, Mama Elaine, was like that. They were my biggest cheerleaders. My sister, Nina, biggest cheerleader. You know, I think people need those in their lives. They need those people in their corner saying, you know, Margaret, you can do this. You can do this with God's help. You can do this. And we all need cheerleaders in our lives. And your dad, your aunt, Nina, my sister, big cheerleaders in my life saying, you can do this. And that just made all the difference in the world. Because I do know women who have tried to go back to school and didn't have their husband's support, and it didn't work out very well. You both have, when someone goes back to school, you both have to be in it. You both have to be on board with it for it to work out, for that person to succeed. And I was there for your dad when he was in school. I was there covering bases, covering things at home, making sure that you guys were taking care of it. Everything was smooth, that he had dinner and clean clothes and, quiet time to study. I made sure of all those things while he was in school. Granted, he only went 3 or 3.5 years. Mine.
That's not the same.
It's not the same. But he still was that cheerleader for me.
So I think that catches up to the next decade, right?
Yeah.
So now we're looking at the last 10 years.
I was 40 when God called me
right.
into ministry. I was 40. I finished my degree when I was 54, 14 years, 54. And so...
Yeah, so that catches us up to from 50 to 60.
Yeah.
You're thriving in your job at First Baptist Covington.
Yes.
You're the kids pastor here, and you oversee hundreds of kids every Sunday.
Yes.
You have so much influence. You have so much responsibility, but so much wisdom, so much leadership. And a lot of people really look to you, and you've impacted so many kids over the years through your calling. And I think there's a special group of kids now that you oversee, which would be your grandkids.
Yeah. Yes.
You have entered the grandparent phase
I am a yaya.
of your life.
Yes, I am a yaya, and I love it. I love it. It's reliving your childhood for me. So when I watch Chandler and Charlotte, Madeline and Aaron's 2 kids, and watch them play, watch them argue, watch them just explore, and be outside or at the zoo or the water park or the swimming pool, just watching them be a kid. In my mind, I relive Madeline being a kid. I relive you, seeing you, even though they're not your kids, but it's like it takes me back in time. Gideon is 9 months, something like that, 10 months, 9 months old, 8 months old. And, I'm reliving that time when Jacqueline was a baby. I'm reliving that. And that's what grandkids do for us. It sends us back in time to when your kids were little, and you're watching them explore and create and laugh and cry and all the things. And that's why being a part of your grandkids' life is so important, because it does that for us, at least for me. I can't speak for all grandparents, but for me, that's what it does. It sends me back in time, and it's just a wonderful time. But and too, yes, certainly kids, I love investing in kids, but I also love investing in other kids ministers. I love mentoring. This is a part of my ministry that I really didn't know even existed. But I love talking to other kids ministers, other women who are in ministry or desiring to be in ministry or feeling a call to be in ministry. And I love, investing in them, mentoring them, because they're the next generation of ministers, kids ministers. No one talks about it. I know I'm not going to live forever. I know that. And if I can help another kids minister thrive and be successful and encourage them, then I'm setting the church up for success. I'm setting their church up for success, and I love being able to do that. Because my influence with kids only goes so far, right? I've got kindergartners through 6th grade, and so, but eventually they move up and move out of my ministry, and my influence with them is no longer. And so I love being a part of people's lives and helping the new kids ministers at other churches and, even in our church, just investing in people.
Well, as we start to wrap up this conversation, I just think it's so amazing to hear your entire story. From the beginning. You've experienced tragedy. You've experienced triumph.
Yes.
You've experienced life change for giving your life to Christ at a young age and not quite knowing how your future would look.
Yeah.
But as an adult, surrendering your calling, surrendering your life to ministry, and how you have just impacted so many lives as a result of that.
Yeah.
You've committed yourself to the discipline of education for 14 years.
Yes.
It's just so inspiring, and I'm just so grateful that you're my mom.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I adore my children, Madeline, and then Donovan, and then Jonathan, and then Harrison, and then Jacqueline. You guys have no idea the impact you made on me being your mom. You guys made me a better mom. I wanted to be a good mom for you. I wanted a relationship with each of my kids. I wanted that. Because when you're coming from a divorce, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. The odds are against me. Being a child of divorce, the odds are against us that we're going to turn out okay. It really is. If you look at the studies and you look at what happens to kids from divorce, it is not a good road. And we all three of us had bumps in the road. All three of us did. If you were to interview them, you'd discover that they had detours. They had bumps just like I did. But with God's leading and guiding, with God's help, I overcame that. And I knew that divorce was not something I wanted for me. I knew that I was going to do whatever I could to make it work, because it just was a very hard time. And but God had a plan. God had a plan. He took something that was broken, right, and made it new again, and made it beautiful. And I'm very thankful that I got to be the recipient of that great love that He has for me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been amazing to hear it over the years. 60 is an amazing milestone, and I mean, we're praying for more years.
We are.
60 more. Let's do it.
Oh, goodness. Okay. As long as I don't look it.
Yep.
As long as I don't look it. Oh, I want to be young. I want to act young. I want to look young. I think we all do.
You're doing a great job.
Or at least age gracefully.
Yes.
I know some women have aged so gracefully. They're gorgeous women, and they're older than I am. And I hope to be like them.
You're doing great. You're on the right track.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I love you, Mom.
I love you too, son. And thanks so much. Okay. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, thanks.
Love you.